In this video, we're going to explore how to create a room sample like this with the texture atlas technique. So here is actually a previous file that I actually worked on and actually created using another software, but when I can actually assemble them back and import them and assign all the correct textures into this scene again. So these are samples of what you see in a game. So this is how environments looks like in any 3D space. So we're gonna explore how can we create a small room with the floor, the wall, and using a human scale as a guide for us to make decisions on what are the scales of the room is. So here's a human scales that I actually provided. It's actually quite accurate to any FPS games, which is first person shooting game, which if you use this grid to make any environments or items, you will not run very far from the correct scale, because most of the items will have to fit into a human scale. That's some of the game engine default setting. So this character is actually based on the setting of the actual human scale of 180 cm, 50 cm. So you see here, over here, that the height is 180, the width is 50, the depth is 50. So if I were to put this character into this box, it's actually around the same height and scale. If you want to create a simple human scale without using this actual human figure, you actually go ahead and create it using the same method from cube, okay, using polygon cube, and you just type the number 180 cm, 50, 50. When you create them, you actually create a human scale size, which is this size. And you just need to move them out to get the correct scale. So this is how actually you would create a human scale for your modeling. Now the next thing you need to look at is actually the grid that we're using now is actually fairly small, because we want a great environment, we need a bigger grid. In the previous videos and tutorials, we actually did exercise on a very small grid. So we're gonna increase the grid size. So go ahead to display grid under the option here. Okay, you'll see the grid option. So now it's actually pretty small because the maximum you go is 12 units only. So let's say if we increase it to 100, the grid size will increase, but it's actually the individual square itself is actually quite small, so we want to increase that. Maybe let's go for 10. Now it's bigger already. So but we want to make environment, because this is based on a cm, right? So this grid is only maximum of 100 cm, so I don't think any environment will be actually that small. So we probably want to increase the grid size to a larger scale and increase the grid line bigger, so we actually can make a proper environment using this scale of 1000 unit and also 100 lines per unit. So that way we can actually make a fairly good room with this size number. Then okay, close it. So now we have a grid size for the room. The next thing is actually this character is not on the grid size, on the grid itself. It's actually the pivot point. What is a pivot point? Is actually the central. Do you see that central handler that you always use? It's actually right in the middle. Now we want to change this one so it actually fits to the ground. So because we want to have the pivot point to the ground of the character, because that way we can actually move them around and it's actually still on the floor. For example, this character, so you see that when I move, it's actually going inside the floor. So we want to have that kind of control. So what I do is select this object. We actually can change the pivot point by pressing and hold D and the cursor will change into something like this. And when you can move around this, you actually can move to somewhere that you like. But we don't want to move to any simple space. We want to move it so it actually fits into somewhere, a point where it actually has the bottom. So how do we go about doing that? I'm going to release the D for a while, and I'm going to turn on this one, snap to point. Go ahead and click on the snap to point, and now this one will snap to the point whenever I move the previous point. So I'm going to press D, and when I move right, it will snap to the vertex point. So what is a vertex point again? It's all these points that you use to do modeling. Once you're done, you have to turn off because or else you will snap to any points that is nearby. For example, here will snap to here. So definitely that's not what you want. Once you've done the pivot point snapping to the vertex point on this character scale, the next thing you probably want is actually have it snap to the ground of the grid. So we can use this one, snap the grid. So we move it, it actually will move around on the grid, which is right the correct number for 0 here. So you can see here the check is actually on the ground. So whenever you've done, remember to turn off the snap the grid. So now this human scale is actually correct. So if you want to use the human scale operator, you use something like that. So we are done with the human scale. Now we want to make a room. Now there are many ways to make a room. Okay, one of the way most people will show you is actually how to create a room using a box, right? Using cube. So example here, if I want to start from scratch, usually we want to make a room that's quite large in number. We turn it to 1000. 1000 means it's 1000 cm. So which is something the room size would look like, but it's pretty weird because usually room don't have this kind of square shape. So we have to turn the height lower so it actually fits more to the ceiling. But since I have 500, it also is a bit too much. Let's try half or maybe 300. Usually ceiling will be not so high. You can check on interior design specification. Now once we've done that, let's move the pivot point to the vertex. There you go. Turn off, and then we want to make sure this one is actually snapped to the grid, and actually it's snapped already. Pretty much okay, but if we can double check again, let's go ahead and snap it to the grid. There you go. So now this is how we create a room sample size like this, but it's actually the cube itself, the polygon is actually one object. So what we can do now is we can use the function extract to divide all the elements here. Go ahead, we can actually use face. Let's select the ceiling because now it's actually part of the same object. So what we do is actually we go to edit mesh, go to extract. Once you click on this button, we can actually move the ceiling already. In fact, you can go ahead and click anywhere, and the ceiling itself is actually an object by itself already. It's actually extracted already. So this will be your ceiling. Let me type the word ceiling. Now usually in the assignments and the way we make games, right, we probably don't want the ceiling. I'll just move it away a bit. In fact, I can delete it later. But now we have to separate the different parts of the room. So go ahead. Let's go ahead and choose face. Let's choose the wall. Edit. Extract. Done. Okay. Select another one. Extract. Done. Okay. Select another one. Extract. Done. So now you can check, right? All the walls actually is separate, except for, is this the same? Yes, correct, it's actually separated already, except for the floor. So let's go ahead and separate the one last wall. Extract, click anywhere. Now the floor is by itself already, which is pretty good. Okay, alright, now assuming that we want to keep the floor of the pivot point should be as origin like this. So let's say I actually have a lighting in the scene, so you actually can turn off my lighting to get an idea about how it looks like, so to where the grid is, so you can just turn off shadow. Alright, and then let's move the pivot point now to the grid instead for the floor. So there you go. Now the floor, the pivot point actually is at the grid ready, so it's pretty much okay for the floor. Let's type the name floor. Alright, so now let's rename all the walls. Okay, maybe 01. Let's copy that. Rename it 02, 03, 04. So we have it. We have the wall separate. In the next video, we're gonna look into texturing the floor and also the wall.